What's this? A second video? Two videos in one day? I spoil you guys. It is the holiday season, however, but you read the title of this video. New Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 information has been revealed through some patents for the game itself, and I think this stuff is very cool. Some of it is stuff we knew about, some of the stuff not quite so much. So I sort of want to go over what we learned about in these patents and then give you guys my impressions about how they're going to be used in the actual gameplay, because that's what this stuff is really focused on. Before we get into that stuff though, I want to say thank you if you watched my Indie World video. Evidently, a lot of people were mad at me because I didn't like those games, and like, I don't understand why you get mad at someone for not liking games or those games not being their cup of tea. Like, I love Friday the 13th on the Switch. You don't love that game. I love Enter the Matrix on the Nintendo GameCube. You don't love that game. You think it's a buggy mess. At the end of the day, it's just my opinion. I like to tell jokes in my videos and make you guys laugh. Don't get offended at anything. It's all very tongue-in-cheek. Crazy that I even have to say that, but I mean, it is 2021, you know, going into 2022, so it is what it is. I love you all at the end of the day, no matter what you think of any game, because it's all just subjective stuff. But let's get into this information. So, obviously, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is a game that I feel like everyone's looking forward to it. You know, the first game in the series definitely took a step in a different direction. They went that more open world style that we had never really seen before in a Legend of Zelda game. Yes, we got glimpses of it with games like Twilight Princess and, of course, Ocarina of Time, but they never really sort of just fully embraced it to where it's like, hey, go anywhere at the start of the game. And I think it worked very, very well. Obviously it did, because this is the best-selling Legend of Zelda game of all time. It really brought in new players to the franchise as well because of the open-ended mechanics of the game. Now, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, of course, released right when the Nintendo Switch released, and really it was a Wii U game that was just brought over to the Nintendo Switch because the Wii U was drowning in its own failures at the time. So many people expected this sequel to sort of come along pretty quickly, you know, something like we saw with the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, because The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Breath of the Wild 2 do share some similarities with games like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. The main thing, of course, being the graphics engine in the game. We did get a glimpse of what Breath of the Wild 2 is going to look like, and of course it looks a lot like the original game. I don't think that should be a big surprise to anyone, because, well, I mean, they're using the same engine, much like Ocarina and Majora's Mask did. Also, much like Ocarina and Majora's Mask, they have essentially the same sort of gameplay style. Now, obviously, Majora's Mask had some serious deviations with the whole mask system in the game, but at its core, a lot of the things were still the same. Your combat still felt very similar, so it seemed like that was also going to be in this game as well, just with some refinements. And of course, we've gotten a brief look at The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 with two different trailers. One was essentially a teaser trailer, and one got a little bit more in depth. In that teaser trailer, we learned that Zelda was going to play a role in this game. Surprise, surprise, it's a Legend of Zelda game. Her and Link were in the little spooky cavern, and there was an evil guy in there, more than likely Ganon, because, well, it's a Legend of Zelda game. And then, of course, at E3 2021, we got a little bit more of an in-depth look, and there was some very interesting stuff going on, like teleporting and skydiving, all sorts of stuff that was new when you compared it to the original Breath of the Wild game. Well, in these patents that were just discovered very recently by a website called GameReactor.eu, I will have a link to their website in the description box down below, so you can check out all the information if you would rather read it instead of hearing me talk about it. But I mean, you're already here, so you might as well stick around. We did learn some more stuff about the gameplay in the game, and some of the stuff we already knew, some of the stuff we didn't really know though, so I want to go over this stuff with you guys because I think it's super interesting. Alrighty, so essentially we have three different patents that were discovered by GameReactor.eu. Like I said, they will be in the description box down below. Make sure you guys check them out and show them some love. And the first one is something that we learned about was going to be in Breath of the Wild 2 with that E3 2021 trailer. The ability to travel through solid items from top to bottom. So we see three different sorts of ways that Link will be able to do this. In the first instance, he's going from top to bottom, sort of on like a little slope. The second one is a steeper slope. And the third one, he's sort of like in a box within the solid structure and then going down below him. Now, I think this stuff is very interesting because it's kind of like, well, how is this going to be used in the actual game? Is there going to be like levels, and I don't mean like actual video game levels, but like different levels such as floor 1, floor 2, floor 3 that Link will be sort of going into, and he'll have to transfer up and down between these things? Will it be used in the combat of the game as well? Will you maybe be escaping the Guardians this way? Will the Guardians even be featured in the game? I'm not quite sure, but I think this is a very interesting mechanic because more so than just being able to travel through a solid substance. There has to be a justification and a reason why Link is actually going through a solid substance. And really, I say Link, but you may be able to control Zelda too in this game. You know, that's also been something that's sort of rumored, but we'll just say Link for this video. But there has to be a reason why, an ability, something that happened in the world, an ability that he gets. So I'm actually really interested to see essentially the story behind why Link has this ability, and of course how it's going to be utilized in the game, because I feel like there's a ton of stuff you could do with this gameplay mechanic, and I do hope they sort of expand upon it more so than just what we're seeing here. I don't want to just travel through floors because I can, and I'm sure Nintendo has already figured that out. I'm sure they've sort of expanded upon why this exists in the game, but I think it's a very interesting mechanic, something that I'll definitely have to sort of feel it in motion to see how it's actually going to work. Now, the second image we have is essentially something that, you know, is pretty basic. You know, it's a rewind feature, which I don't know how that's going to be used in the game. Will it be used for puzzles so you don't have to leave a room? Or is it saying that this will be in the actual room that you're in a puzzle in, and when you leave it, it will rewind? I'm not quite sure. It does look like it's something that could potentially be on the HUD of the game. You know, I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. But the essential thing that we have going on here is you know, basically a return movement where Link is throwing something, it's on a curvature, this is where it goes because it's on a curvature, much like something with a boomerang or something, or the ability to control different things. Like, of course, we saw the bug in Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword where you could sort of shoot it and then control the direction that it goes in. So I don't necessarily think this is something new, but I think the rewind feature is actually very interesting if that's going to be in the final version of the game, because now we're talking about the potential of time control in the game. And yes, there was a little bit of time control in the original Breath of the Wild game as far as slowing down time when you're in the air and doing like an arrow shot or something, but we haven't seen it as far as actual puzzle mechanics are concerned, at least not recently. So interested to see what's going on with this. I think there could be more than meets the eye with this, but even if you just take it at the surface level, it is kind of cool. And then, of course, we have the third and final slide. And this, to me, is definitely the most interesting slide because there's a lot of stuff going on here. So we could see here that there are three different states: State A, State B, and State C. State A is vertically downward, State B is downward relative to the first relevance position, and State C is upward relative to the first reference direction. So what this essentially is showing me, at least in my opinion, is the whole skydiving mechanic. Link is going straight down in the first image with his arrow in hand, so obviously this is something involving combat. In the second image, he's going downward at a diagonal reference, which of course, you know, is a different way that he's going down, basically on an angle with his arrow in hand. Upward relative to the first reference position, though, I think that's very interesting because that essentially to me is like saying he's going through something. I'm guessing if I'm reading that correctly, but even if that's not the case, even if it's just an upright position, obviously there is some movement going on either from left to right or up and down. But this is the thing about this. This to me shows that that little skydiving thing that we saw at the start of the video for the E3 trailer for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, this is an actual gameplay mechanic. This wasn't just an intro for the game, and it's like, oh, cool, Link is going through the clouds, he's going crazy, he's gonna do this, he's gonna do that. No. This is actually being utilized in the game, so much, in fact, that you'll actually be able to do combat in this position, and that's where things get very interesting, because one of the most unique things about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the original game, was, of course, the physics engine in that game. People are still discovering new things over 4 years, nearly 5 years after that game has released, as far as what you could do within the physics engine of the game. Now we have the ability to go through solid states up and down. Now we have the ability to dive bomb through the sky. And yes, you kind of had the ability to jump off of something, you know, a high structure or something, and you can shoot your arrow in the sky and, you know, slow down time. But for some reason, Link is up in the sky when this starts. He's up in a much higher area than he would be within the game. So he's not jumping off a mountain because the mountain is not higher than the sky. The sky is the highest point of this game that we have seen thus far. So here's my question. Why is Link in the sky? What is Link doing in the sky? How does Link get up into the sky? Is there an ability that he gets? Is he flying on a creature? Is it like a super jump? Like, there's so many unanswered questions when it goes to that, but we have now learned that this whole sky mechanic, this whole flying around essentially thing, is going to be an integral part of this game. Now, of course, you could jump off of something in Skyward Sword and then call your winged beast and fly away on it, but this looks like it's all of that minus the winged beast. So are there going to be different sorts of cloud or different sorts of cities within the sky that are also part of this open world that he's going to have to traverse into? There's a lot of options. There's a lot of crazy stuff here. There's a lot of different ways that this can go, but I'm really interested to see how this all comes together. Obviously, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is pegged for a 2022 release. Some people feel like they might try to do like a March thing to sort of coincide with the 5-year anniversary of the original Breath of the Wild, but to me, that really doesn't make too much sense. You already got a lot of stuff coming out in the springtime. You've got games like Pokemon Legends Arceus in January. You, of course, have Kirby, I believe, comes out in March or April as well. So you don't really want to cannibalize Kirby because Kirby needs all the help he can get. And I really think that new Kirby game looks absolutely fantastic. So I sort of see this as a more fall or holiday 2022 title. Obviously get people very excited for this Switch, but there's some crazy stuff going on within these patents. And this is stuff that we know is actually going to be used in the Breath of the Wild 2 game because we've already seen some of it in action. We've already seen it in that initial trailer, but now we know that there's actually more to it than originally meets the eye as far as what you can actually do with this stuff. So I'm pretty excited. You know, I'm pretty excited for these new gameplay mechanics. The whole thing about Breath of the Wild that made it so special was that open world and how the physics worked within that open world. And now that you're adding in new stuff, assuming that they're going to bring back some of the stuff that you could do in the original game, it's like, there's a lot of different options for what you can do as far as a traversal system. There's a lot of different things you can do as far as a combat system, and there's a ton of things you can do as a puzzle system. If you're having things that you can control to go around different areas, if you're having different platforms that you can go up and down and switch between through, and then dive bomb through the sky and come down with an arrow and be like, "What's up, bitch?" and just like take out, you know, a freaking enemy below you or something like that. Like that is some cool shit. Like that is some cool shit that you are putting in this game. So let me know in the comments section down below what you think of these patents. Do you find them interesting? Do you think that people are looking too deep into them? Because, I mean, they're really not. Like these moblins, they're in trouble because Link has some new abilities and shit's about to get real. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it more so than you might have enjoyed the indie video. Like I said, it's just my opinion on games. It's not that big of a deal. Stop getting angry about it, sending me mean tweets or mean messages and shit like that. It's just my opinion on games. But Breath of the Wild, we're going to talk positive about this because people have been saying I've been too negative lately. Well, here is some positivity. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Shout outs to you guys. We hit 410,000 subscribers. I wanted to hit that before the end of the year. It's not the end of the year yet, but we have already hit it. So thank you guys so much. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.